What's up, Luca Nation? Just doing a quick recap. We just did our episode, but I wanted to do a preview right here in the beginning in case you're coming up against it for your Week 9 bets. I'll just run through our picks for you. That way you can get them in and then listen to the whole episode if you like. We got Seahawks -3. We have the Broncos +4. We have the Bears +6.5. We have the Lions +3.5. I got the Ravens winning the game. That line actually changed while we were doing the episode. It was Ravens -1. Now it's Ravens +1. I don't think it matters. Ravens are going to win that game. We got the Chiefs -10. We've got the Texans -6.5. We got the Skins. Oh, could I call them that? The Washington football team. Washington football team. Got to change that in my notes there. I don't want to upset anybody. -2.5. So -2.5. The Washington football team. Raiders -1. And go ahead and put a little on the over on that one if you like. 52. First stone cold lock of the day is the Steelers. I don't care that it's 14.5. It could be 19.5. The Steelers are covering that. Go ahead and put your money on the Steelers -14.5. We're taking the Cardinals -5.5. Also like the over in that game, over 49.5. And in the Sunday night primetime game, we got the Bucks -3.5. And your second stone cold lock of the day, over 50.5 points total for the game, over 50.5. Enjoy Week 9, everybody, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks, everybody. Yo, yo, yo.
Luca Nation, we are in for a treat. So I've known Cage for 3 months, and we've been doing this every single day, nonstop. And this morning's a little bit different. This guy was head down. It was like he was watching film this morning, prepping for NFL Sunday. So I'm really excited for you guys today.
Got the Jets hat on too. What's that?
He's got the Jets hat on. His eyes, they're locked in. He even has that little black stuff underneath of his eyes, so I can't see.
Black stuff. It's called eye black.
Well, that's what that's called. It's so the corners can't see where you're throwing, right? But point is, he's laser focused. So what I'm going to do for you guys here is I'm going to read out the lines in the beginning, the lines I have, the over-under, the spread, and where I see the money. I use this app called Scores and Odds, and I'm going to turn over the keys to Cage, who's going to really run with it. And I'm feeling a winning Sunday, Week 9. Before I get into the odds, Cage, anything you want to say?
No, I used the Scores and Apps thing myself, the Scores and Odds app. You sent it to me last week, so hopefully we're not going to have any kind of odds issues because we're both looking at the same lines. I love it.
All right. Well, I'm going to rattle it off. So we got the 6-1 Seahawks at the Buffalo Bills, who are 6-2. 99% of the money is on Seattle money line, and 86% of the money is on Seattle spread. Seattle -3, over under 55, 88% of the money on the over. Broncos at Falcons. Broncos +4. 96% of the money is on the Falcons money line, and it's a pretty even split on the spread. 53% on the Falcons, 47% on the Broncos, with a whopping 95% on the over, which is 49. Bears at the Titans. The Bears, man, who could get a read on those guys? 5-3 Bears at the 5-2 Titans. These are two teams that some people would say are overperforming their records. I'm not one of them. 80% of the money is on the Tennessee money line. 71%, though, is on the Bears spread. The Bears are +6.5, and a pretty even split on the over. Over is 47. I'm seeing 57% of the money on under 47. Now we got the Lions and the Vikings. 3-4 Lions at the 2-5 Vikings. I'm seeing a spread of +3 or +3.5. That's going to be an interesting one to discuss. Pretty even split on the money line. 54% of the money going on Minnesota, and also pretty even split on the spread, which is +3.5 here on the Scores app. Now I'm seeing 92% of the money on the under 51. Ravens Colts. This is a good one. This is a really good one. I'm excited for this game. This game opened at Ravens -3.5. Now it's Ravens -1. 53% of the money is on the Ravens money line, and 59% is on the Ravens -1.5. 98% of the money is on the over 48. Panthers at the Chiefs. Panthers +10. This is a good one as well. I'm really excited for this game. 3-5 Panthers visit the 7-1 Chiefs. 57% of the money, this is interesting, is on Carolina money line. Interesting. This is just what the app is saying, Cage. Don't jump down my throat. I almost want to jump down my throat after reading that. And 35% of the money is on Carolina +10. 20% of the money is on the under 51.5. Last few games here. Houston, 1-6 Houston at the 1-6 Jags. Houston is -6.5. 96% of the money is on Houston. And it's a pretty even split on the spread. 48% of the money going to Houston -6.5. 89% of the money going on under 49. Giants at Washington. 1-7 Giants. 1-7 Giants visiting the Washington football team, which is 2-5. 59% of the money is on Washington money line. 67% of the money is on the Giants +2.5. 80% is on the under 43.5. We got the 4:00 games. Raiders, Chargers. This game was interesting. It opened at the Chargers -1, and now it's Raiders -1, which is interesting. We're seeing most of the money on the Raiders, 67% on the money line and 67% on the spread. Not surprising since they're basically the same. And 76% on the over, which is over 52.5. Steelers, Cowboys. All the money is basically coming in on the Steelers. Steelers -14.5, visiting the Cowboys. 88% on the money line. 84% on Steelers -14.5. 73% of the money on over 44. 73% on the over 44. Last 4:00 game, Dolphins at the Cardinals. Very interesting game. Cardinals off a bye. Dolphins visiting the Cardinals with Tua. Line opened -3. Well, actually, now I'm seeing it. I apologize for that. The line opened at -5.5 to the Cardinals. It was down to -3.5 at some points this week, and now it's back up to -5, -5.5. This is interesting, most of the money going in on Miami. Miami has 70% on the money line and 78% on the spread at +5.5. 79% of the money is on over 49.5. And the last game of the evening, it's going to be a good one. Bucks, Saints. 5-2 Saints visiting the 6-2 Bucks. Line is -4 towards the Bucks. Pretty even split on the money line. 46% going to New Orleans. And New Orleans is getting 62% of the spread at +4. Most of the money is actually on the under. 79% on the under 50.5. Cage Lawyer. Let's get us a winning week 9. Let's go.
So before we do that, which ones of those games jump out at you as ones where you're like, oh my goodness, what's the spread there? And which one of them are like dead on? Because for me, and I'll just throw that right there, the Steelers -14.5 was a hilarious spread because before you really look at these games, you know who's playing, before I look at the odds and before I looked at your app, I was like, oh, the Steelers are going to win this game by 2 touchdowns. And then you see 14.5. That's the second one. That's the worst one for me on picking was it always comes down to this, right? And it's the same thing last week. I think we had the same conversation last week when we looked at the Seahawks. The Seahawks seem good enough to beat anyone this year.
Yep.
But they also seem to be playing to the level that their opponents play to. And, when I saw this, I mean, I like to pick the Seahawks every week because I really do. I think they're going to win almost every game, basically. But they seem to be the team that's going to win every game by a field goal. And then to see that the Seahawks were a field goal favorite, I'm like, oh, come on. Give me a break here. This is exactly what winds up happening, right? So it's just funny as I wind up doing these, these picks when, the more we've done this, and now there's 9 weeks into it, the more we've done this, the more I realize that, the people who are coming up with these spreads, they know what they're doing. I mean,
So you're absolutely right, and something to take note. The guys that or the women that are making these spreads, they have 9 weeks of data to work with. And anyone who's in data knows the more data you have, the more accurate it becomes. So I actually think a lot of these lines are really spot on. To me, what I found was a lot of good opportunities to tease. So the lines that I wanted to tease and is the Dolphins plus 5.5. Although I am a little bit scared of the reverse line movement here, but I just don't think the Cardinals are well coached. I think Kyler Murray's overrated. That team is incredibly penalized. I think they're the highest penalized team in the league, and I don't rate them off a bye. Kings Cliffsbury or whatever. He's not a very good X's and O's coach, in my opinion, and we've talked about that. So the Dolphins on the tease, Titans teasing down to a pick, and the Raiders when they were plus 1.5 were the 3 games that I thought were really worthy of moving up 7 points. But you're absolutely right, Cage. I think they've set some really good lines this week. Just to touch on the Steelers, I would just play the Steelers because the Cowboys are 0-7 against the spread, and I would run with that trend. Run with it till the wheels fall off.
And, it's funny. I'll jump onto that Steelers one also. I think the Steelers are going to be my pick. They're going to cover that 14.5. But what was funny was listening to what you talk about here, because, you give the folks the money where the money is. I was surprised after last week's Cowboys game where they seemed so inept, so unable to move the ball, so unable to score, that all the money was coming in on the over. Unless people think the Steelers are going to be so dominant, they're going to score 35 first half points against the Cowboys who can't stop anyone, and that the over is going to come in just because the Steelers are going to score enough points themselves.
My favorite thing you've said, and I think people should go back and listen to it, I don't remember what episode, is how in sync that Steelers defense is. You've talked about continuity, right?
Yep.
And if you guys watch the Steelers game, everything Cage has said about that defense has played out. They're incredibly in sync, and I actually think they're the strength of that team.
They are.
So you're absolutely right. I think their offense is very they're good enough to win. That's the kind of offense they have.
All right, so let's go through them, right? The Seahawks -3. We're going to pick the Seahawks -3 on this one. I think they win the game by at least a touchdown. They're it sets up well for them. The Bills have been kind of erratic, right? They started off really good, then they lost a couple. They got back in the win column against a really terrible Jets team recently. I think that the Seahawks will play this game from ahead, and when Josh Allen is playing from behind, he does not play as well. The Bills team plays much better with a lead. When Josh Allen has to make up ground, that's when he makes plays, and when he makes plays, more often than not, he fumbles or he turns the ball over. We've seen it enough where it's no longer a joke; it's actually true. He's. I think I read a stat that in the last 4 weeks he scored as many touchdowns as times he's turned the ball over. So he's as brilliant as it gets. His scrambles are fantastic, but also it seems that at the end of them, he'll have the ball out, like I tell my son, like a loaf of bread. I think I've said this 3 times during these picks, and he'll just make a turnover at exactly the wrong point in the game. Right now,
what do you make of Josh Allen? Well, what do you make of him? Like through 5 weeks, he was the MVP. But if you kind of open up that his sample size, like I remember last year against the Texans, right? Do you remember that playoff game?
Yep, I do.
He's so hot and cold, right? He's either just you think he's top 5 quarterback in the league, or he's so erratic and he becomes a liability.
Josh Allen is the NFL's version this year of Fernando Tatis.
Oh, I don't like that comparison.
He's a young, exciting kid who came out hot and experienced a cold streak. Now it remains to be seen if, like Tatis did at the end of the year, he turned it back on, whether or not Allen will do the same thing. He put up some nice numbers, he put up some stuff, but it was difficult for somebody that young, that unproven with no track record to sustain the type of pace that they were on for an entire season. Not to mention, they're young, they play at a skilled position, shortstop versus quarterback. They are potentially somebody who the league can hang their hat on and be the face of what's coming. But it's difficult, right? It's a long season. Just like baseball's a long season, football's a long season. I know it's only 17 weeks and 16 games, but that is a grind, right?
Yes, sir.
This is a tough league to play in, and to expect Josh Allen to play at an MVP level, this early in his career, every game, week in, week out against some difficult opponents, which he had a tough schedule there. It's difficult. While the Seahawks defense is not what they have been in years past. Really what this comes down to is I've watched every Seahawks game, and all Russell Wilson needs his defense to do is make one or two more stops than the other defense. And when you got a quarterback who is apt to turn the ball over, that that stop counter will go up enough where a -3 a field goal spread. I mean, that's the worst case scenario I think for Seattle.
So I want to ask you about the over under.
Please,
It's at 55, right? But most of the money, 88%, is on the over. A lot of those plays against the Jets that resulted in field goals, an inch here, an inch there, those turn into touchdowns. Do you think this is a game that goes over?
I won't make it one of my picks, but yes, if I were putting money on it, I would say that the over comes in on this just because I don't really love either of these defenses. The same thing with Jets. The Jets had a bunch of scoring opportunities too in that game against Buffalo. Buffalo's defense is not the greatest thing on the
I think they're the 30th ranked defense.
But I mean, Seahawks are doing stuff to shore up their defense. I'm not sure yet. I could look now, or if you want to look, Jamal Adams has been out the last 4 games. I'm not sure if he's playing today for the Seahawks. And they had a good they had a good game last week. They also traded for Carlos Dunlap, and he might be active for them today as well. I mean, the Seahawks defense looks to get a little bit better. I could see them making a couple of plays this week against Allen with the turnovers that keep the score slightly lower. I mean, remember a 26-23 game, which is still high scoring for both teams, or a 30-23 kind of score here still stays under.
That's right. And Jamal Adams is back. Chris Carson's out, Shaquille Griffith's out, Mike Uapati's out, and Carlos Hyde's out.
But so Jamal Adams running backs out. But so I'm actually if you want like a score prediction, I would predict a 30-24 Seattle win here, which funny is right at the over under, but slightly under, right? And that's still a lot of points, right? I mean, think of how many touchdowns it takes to get the 30-24. So there's my prediction on that one. If I had to bet, I would bet that over just because anything happens. In a game with turnovers, I like to think turnovers lead to quick points. But we've seen that doesn't always happen. I mean, we saw that in like the Browns-Raiders game. Of course, there was weather there. There were a ton of turnovers, but the turnovers all seemed to happen right by midfield, and neither team was able to capitalize on it. I mean, it's just one of those interesting things, right? Or the turnover happened as one team was about to go in the end zone, and they fumble at the 5. And give the other team a 95-yard field. Those are not turnovers that usually lead to points. So it's an interesting thing, right? So, all right. So the next lineup you have here is the Broncos +4. I like this game, right? Because both of these teams, believe it or not, come in. They kind of like reset their season, right? 3 weeks ago, and each of them are coming in winning 2 out of their last 3 games. Drew Lock. It's amazing too, because my thought on Locke was play him for those first 7 or 8 games, because it's going to be prime time, and he's going to be he's going to be playing against the Chiefs. He's going to have some big games, and he's going to be nationally televised, and you're going to be able to take a look at him showcasing his talents and then sell. Well, as it turns out, while those games were nationally televised, they were also against teams that were much better than him. And he looked absolutely lost, basically, for a long time. Even against 2 games ago looked bad. Even against the Chargers, if you watch that game, he looked basically like a high school quarterback for 3 quarters. And then in the 4th quarter, it was like, could that be the season changer right there? That win against the Chargers, that comeback where they came back and basically everything came right. Everything fell right for them. And you can almost say the same thing here against the Falcons. And this one I give you credit for, right? Because the Falcons, we talked about the coaching change, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the Falcons, they won two like decisive games since they got Morris in there, the interim head coach. Of course, remember what I said was that the new head coach coincided perfectly with Julio Jones' return to the field, which obviously could help the team on the field. They also lost a ridiculous game, one of those games as well. But you could argue, though, that this game means more to the Broncos for their season and potentially trying to salvage a season than it does to the Falcons. I like the Broncos defense, and I think that that's going to be the difference in this game. Their offense is not a slouch. It really comes down to Locke. I have a tough time betting on him, but this season I have a tougher time betting on the Falcons just
Right.
based on the track record here. Believe it or not, this is one I'm loving that it's +4, right? I think that's a great line for the Broncos. I see the Broncos potentially winning this game. And if I had one of those, tricky, ability to walk into a sports book, I might. The most of my bet will be on those 4 points. It provides a nice safety blanket, but I might actually put a little wager on the Broncos money line.
Yep.
Because I think the Broncos actually win this game. Close,
This is how I play a game like this. So two things you said that I love about Drew Lock. For 3 quarters, he looked like a complete rookie, right?
Mhm.
Out of place. And then he had that fourth quarter drives where he brought them back. That kind of worries me, right? Because he is a gamer. He's someone who likes the big moment. But what about the rest of the game, right? It's not always just about the big moment. It's about executing for the other, 55 minutes. So that worries me because I've seen players like that they love the spotlight, but they could also throw a ton of interceptions and not even get to that spotlight point at the end of the game. But I think it's a great small play on the Broncos +4 and sprinkle a half a unit on the money line just in case it does come through. I agree it has some value.
There you go. This is one. The next game here is Bears Titans. This is another one where I'm going to lean into the spread here, and I love it. But what's funny about this one is if you're a football fan, right, and we're trying to do, the lines here for you and give you picks and whatnot. But if you're a football fan, this is actually sneaky a great game. You know what I mean? It's actually going to, I think, be a fun game to watch, right? When the Titans have the ball, they are great at 2 things: third down and red zone, as you expect when they have basically an Abrams battle tank in their backfield, right? You'd figure that somebody like Henry is going to make a team awesome at picking up third and short and being dominant in the red zone, punching it into the end zone on those short plays because you're not reliant on, pass plays and whatnot, right? But what's funny about this is the Bears, they are one of the league's best third down and red zone defenses. I don't know if that's Khalil Mack. I don't know what story is there, but that is their strength. And so here's where it gets fun, right? On the offensive side, when the Bears have the ball, the your friend Nick Foles, they're near the bottom in red zone and third down offense. Maybe it's because their running back is towards the bottom of the league in yards per carry. Maybe it's because, while Foles is great at the Hail Mary, he's not good at the end zone fade. I don't know what the reason is there, but the teams could not be more diametrically opposed. But here's where it's funny. The counterbalance and the mirror, those matchups that make fights, matchups make games. The Titans defense can't get itself off the field. So they're not good in those third down and red zone opportunities. So it really is an interesting matchup, right? And, Foles, I watched him last week. He made more throws than people are giving him credit for. He didn't have a great game. And you could argue that Foles has now gotten to the end of that brutal schedule that he's faced, coming in for Trubisky. This game is not the easiest thing in the world for him. The Titans have looked bad the last 2 weeks, also against decent competition. I mean, the Steelers, like anybody, look bad, and the Titans almost won that game. They didn't look so good last week, though. And really, what I see in this game, when I see mirror image games, I see a game that could potentially be a coin flip type of game. And if this game is won by the Titans, I could see a 24-23 last team that has the ball type of win. Some team winning by a field goal. And when I look at a spread of 6.5,
I have to go with the team that's getting the 6.5 points. So finally, this is a week where I turn around and every week I've said, have there been a worse 5-0 team, 5-1 team, 6-2? Has there been a worse one of those since the Bears? And I always say the Bears, this is the week where the wheels fall off and the whole deal. The Bears are getting 6.5 points here, and they're not 6.5 points worse than the Titans are. So take the Bears on the 6.5 points.
A lot of betting NFL is situational, and oftentimes you have to make some plays that are very gut wrenching. To me, playing the Bears on the road is an incredibly gut wrenching experience, given how ugly they are. And I don't say that lightly. I'm talking literally ugly. But I do agree there is value. There is value. 6.5
Just the
is
spread.
a lot.
This was not. How we look at. We said there's spreads that look right. This spread for me. This game. Look, you tell me the Titans win this game, I'm not going to be surprised. I think the Titans are a better team, but especially look, the Titans are home. I saw this game as a 3. If you told me it was 3.5, 4, 4.5, I could buy those. That would be the spread. But at plus 6.5, I think the Bears are a little bit better than the line's giving them credit for here. And you know what? There are a bunch of games like that, and it seems like I'm talking about the Lions in that spot every week, right? Where this game, the Vikings-Lions, based on how these teams have been playing. Also, I want to just make this clear for our listening audience. I have an irrational hatred of the Lions and Matthew Stafford. I don't know if you've heard that, but for 8 straight weeks, I've said Matthew Stafford is going to the Hall of Fame. He's clearly not going to the Hall of Fame, and anybody who says that should just get off the drugs. But I don't know why. I don't know whether or not the Lions and Stafford burned me 8 years ago in some fantasy league where I came in second by 3 points because Stafford kneeled the ball. I really don't know what it is, but there are certain teams I don't like. The Bears are also one of them as well, and that's just because they took Khalil Mack from my Raiders. So at least that one I can give you a reason for. The Lions, this is a tough one, right? Because here's another one where I looked at this game. I looked at the Vikings who performed better against the Packers last week.
But we talked about that, Cage. That was their Super Bowl. That felt like that was their Super Bowl. They were that they played for all the marbles that game.
Yeah. So I mean, what's funny it is, and Dalvin Cook looked like he was Walter Payton, and we talked about that game, right? But this was a game that I looked at and I said, this is a field goal either way. One of these teams going to win the game by a field goal, and then I look at the spread and I'm like, God damn it. I wish Andrew's app would have been better to me on this one and not made it a 3.5 point spread. I'm like, come on, what's the opening line on this one? Anyway, I can try to squeeze a minus 2.5 instead, but nope.
But Cage, that's a perfect line to tease. You're able to get it's 3.5 right now. You do a 6.5 point teaser, you get it all the way up to 10. You're crossing a ton of really key numbers. In a game that you're absolutely right is essentially a pick'em, and the Vikings are at home basically.
Yep. So here's the way I played this one because I'll give you my pick first, and then I'll kind of go through the matchup on it and the whole deal, right? Do you know that who's playing quarterback for the Lions?
I heard it this morning, but I forgot his name.
Yeah, I mean, so Stafford's a COVID here, right? I mean, that's that normally you'd say, oh man, what the heck's going on here? We got what's going to go on? I mean, you lose your quarterback against the team. You're on the road. You got all this crazy stuff, right? I still think this is a field goal game. So my pick on this one is the Lions plus 3.5. I never thought Chase Daniel, right? Who? I mean,
no, Stafford's cleared to play.
Yep, he's playing exactly. So what's amazing, right? They put him on the COVID list on Wednesday, right? Because he had close contact with quote a non-team person. I hope it's not another woman. What a great way to find out, right? But so Stafford's going to play here, and let's go through these, right? So Vikings and Lions, they're like the same team this year, right? The two teams stuck kind of in that middle ground. They're not in the Jets bucket and they're not in the Chiefs bucket. They're in that everybody else bucket of the league, right? Both teams that could easily have better records than they're playing, than what they're showing, right? Dalvin Cook is fantastic, right? I mean, he's one of those guys that that in the league where it's not a running back league where you can build a team around the running back, right? I mean, he's just, when he's healthy, he is amazing. And
the Lions have also offensive pieces. With Kenny Golladay coming back, that team is completely different. I mean, he's one of those, I don't want to call him Megatron type players because he's not that big and not that good, but he makes a quarterback look better. He makes a Matthew Stafford or anybody who's throwing the ball look better because you just kind of throw it up and he goes up and gets it. He's one of those athletic guys. And, here's the thing. He's out, I think, right? Did you look at the injury report? He's got a hip injury. It was pretty bad. It's Kenny Golladay, Golladay. Kenny Golladay. Rappaport this morning said he thinks he's not going to play. But I always like to rely on you for both the Lions and the injury reports. Kenny Golladay. He got a pretty bad hip injury.
They changed so quickly too.
I know, that's the thing, right? So we've actually had him where
he's out. He's out.
He's out. So I mean, all of the things here slice away from the Lions. All the things in this game say, Matthew Stafford had an interesting week where he was placed on the reserve COVID-19 list on Wednesday, right? Kenny Golladay, who is like the big weapon to throw the ball to, he's not even playing because he got a hip injury. You name it, all these fun things, right? What's amazing on it is, even though the Vikings might win this game, I don't have them winning by more than a field goal late. And with the spread of 3.5, I'll take the Lions. And the Lions surprise and they do something good. Great. I look even better. But this is a game I don't see the Vikings pulling away from the Lions on. So just because of the way the spread is, I got them plus 3.5. And now we get to, if I could put like the music in here, right? The game that you want to hear about. You. And I don't mean you, Andrew. I mean you, Luca Nation. No, actually, I do. I mean you, Andrew. So the Ravens and the Colts, right? So you look at the schedule. You look at the list of the games this week, and this is just one that kind of just sticks out at you, right? It's like one of those things. And if you listen to me, the Colts, their Colts success this year is not a surprise to me. I was on the Colts bandwagon from the beginning. I think I had the Colts going to the Super Bowl. I think I had them losing to the Cowboys, but that's clearly not happening anymore. I think I had Tampa Bay going as well. So maybe it'll be a Colts Super Bowl. Here's the problem with the Colts, though, right? While they're good, while they're very good, and while they've improved with Phillip Rivers, a quarterback, they have no running game. And I'm surprised by that because they drafted Jonathan Taylor, and I guess the games that they've played so far, they've had to rely on Rivers' arm a little bit more and not be that smash mouth running game, you name it, going forward that I thought they were going to be able to do. Yeah, please.
Sometimes, you draft a running back to catch screen passes, right? You mentioned that early on. Melvin Gordon did that with Phillip Rivers. They're doing that with Jonathan Taylor. That's not a running game. That's a screen game. As a matter of fact,
they've pushed off the passing back role. They have not done the Melvin Gordon thing where they've let Taylor blossom. Maybe that'll happen next year, where they've let Taylor blossom into that pass catching role. That's where Naheem Hines has come in. And you've seen that guy make some pretty athletic catches. Couple games already with 2 touchdowns, passing the ball out of the backfield. So they haven't had to turn Taylor into that every down back pass catcher. And I think that in this league, if you don't stay on the field all the downs, and you're not the pass catcher, maybe he has a blocking issue. Maybe he just hasn't picked up the blocking scheme yet for those third down plays. You kind of lose momentum as a running back. If you're in there every play, you're able to make plays. The game comes to you. You're able to get more into the flow. And you see running backs eat like Derrick Henry, like Barry Sanders used to be. You just have to keep feeding them the ball, and eventually one is going to break, and I don't think Taylor in this offense has had the opportunity to have enough, ball fed to him to kind of get into that role. But neither here nor there.
Feed him balls. Feed him more balls.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that all the time, how much you love to be fed balls. So from a basketball perspective, so here's the deal, right?
I thought I was just on a slump buster.
Listen, I still can't believe you haven't shown the picture of that one to the Luca Nation audience. Guys, you got to get on him. So here's the deal. I need a slump buster here for this week. We haven't had the greatest last couple of weeks, but I guess if you compare to how good we were the first 5, basically being 500 for 3 weeks in a row and no good, but we are coming out hot this week, I tell you. So here's my thought on this one. you know how you said last week there are a couple of games that were like you're gonna know about this team this week. This was the game. This was gonna tell you what you needed to know. Also, by the way, how about those Packers? I mean, we both were all over the Packers, and they showed you what they really were, especially coming off of the Vikings.
I wanted to touch on that because I had a little conflict inside of me. That Packers, I thought that they were going to crush the 49ers, but also if you look at the Packers' schedule, how much they've traveled, I thought that was situational. I'm big on situational in the NFL. That was a letdown game for them. But something I thought about, I wanted to bring it up here. Do you think travel used to be a big deal when the leagues weren't as rich, right? When the players weren't flying private everywhere. Is travel as big of a deal as it used to be, given that there's charter flights?
I think so. Remember, these guys are huge. These guys are big, especially like offensive linemen, you name it. It doesn't matter, private, whatever the hell it is. They're still flying across the country multiple times. They're still flying. They're still on jets. They're still, they're still folding themselves into an airplane. I mean, these are jumbo human beings.
Folding themselves into an airplane.
So I mean, I'm not flying private, obviously, but I mean, I hate being on an airplane. It doesn't matter if it's a private jet or not. You're putting your body through like a stressful situation, a pressure scenario. Being up in the air, back and forth, you name it. And, it's just not. We're not supposed to fly. If we were, we'd have wings. So
here's why I say that. And I don't want to beat a dead horse. The Green Bay Packers were at the Bucks October 18th, at the Texans on the 25th, and they played at home versus the Vikings, and then they flew to San Francisco. Historically, that's a lot of travel, and that's difficult. They crushed the 49ers 34-7. It looked like it didn't even affect them.
Well, that game, I don't care if they flew to the moon and back. They had just been embarrassed by a divisional rival who was significantly worse than them. As you said, the Vikings played their best game of the season against them, and the Packers were embarrassed. They had lucky for them, it was a short week, but they were still seething from that loss. I don't care who they could have played the 72 Dolphins on Thursday night, and the Packers would have come out and win. Okay, so it was one of those things. And so this game here, the Ravens-Colts, 1.5 spread. I love that because it's basically who's going to win the game, who's the better team, right? So, and this one here, just to give you my pick, it's the Ravens minus 1.5. The Ravens are just a better team, right? They have more ways to win, right? And it's another one of those. It's like, what do they call them when you go to the doctor? Like a stress test, right? It's a stress test, right, for the Ravens. It's are they part of the elite, and are they the top of the elite? And while I think both for the AFC, I think both the Ravens and the Colts are very, very good teams. I think that Baltimore's defense, believe it or not, is better than it was last year. But the passing game for Lamar Jackson is not. He has not looked good, whereas Rivers has. His offense looks very good from a passing standpoint, right? The rushing, I think I read the stat, right? I think that they're last in yards per carry, which is just bad. I mean, you can't be in the elite of your conference if your team is last in yards per carry, because ultimately, while it's a passing game now and everybody throws the ball all over the place, in order to win games, you have to control the clock when it matters in the fourth quarter. And the way you control the clock is by running the ball and getting 10 yards in less than 3 plays. It's a simple game that way. You run the ball 3 times, you get a first down. You do that enough, the clock runs out when you have the lead. That's it. That's the end of football games. But if your team is dead last in yards per carry, you cannot do that. And you give teams, just as the Colts have many times, you give teams the opportunity to hang around. You give teams the opportunity to have the ball at the end of games. And the ones where you are ahead, you let teams come back. So I love the defense. I mentioned Darius Leonard last week for the Colts. And right there in the first quarter, he came back. And right there in the first quarter, got a strip sack fumble. It was great. I love Julian Blackmon. I love DeForest Buckner. I love their defense. But the Ravens' running game is just different, right? They're coming off their best game of the year. Yeah.
Do you think two things? The Ravens' offensive lineman, I think he broke his ankle, the one they gave all that money to.
Yep.
And Marlon Humphrey, he's injured.
Yep.
Or he's on COVID.
Yep. No, listen, there's a lot of things stacked up against the Ravens in this game, right? They're on the road. They're in Indianapolis, right? They have some injuries. And, I think what we're looking at here is a spread that would probably be 4.5.
Yep.
if it wasn't for all of those things.
Yep.
I just think when it comes down to this one here, and sometimes, the analysis is this easy, Baltimore has more ways to win with more firepower than the Colts on both sides of the ball. And when
Agreed.
you do that, that's a recipe for a team going with a team that's a 1.5 spread. I think the Ravens win this game by more than a point and a half.
And let's not overreact. The
Yep.
Ravens lost to the Chiefs and they lost to the Steelers.
Correct.
Between those two teams, they have one loss.
Right.
So like it's yes, maybe perception is that Lamar isn't playing as well as he did last year, but let's be real. They've lost to the Steelers by 4 points, who are 7-0, and they lost to the Chiefs, who are 7-1.
Right.
Not
So
bad losses by any
the
means.
Ravens lost to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs lost to the Raiders, which means the Raiders are better than the Ravens, which
Let's
is
go.
awesome.
Let's
I love
keep
it.
it
I'm a Raider
rocking.
fan. Let's go Raiders. So Chiefs, Panthers. And by the way, I love that analysis because I do like the Colts, and I think the Colts are knocking on the door of that conversation. But it's pretty clear that the class of the league here is the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Ravens, right? And it's funny that
I love prove it to me, right?
Yep.
Like prove to me, Colts, that you should be in the elite of the elite in the NFL this year. If you win,
this
you
week,
win.
I don't think they do. And, this might be their better opportunity too. As you see, it's a 1.5. They're at home. They got some injuries on the Ravens, but I still don't think they have enough. Chiefs, Panthers. While the Panthers are a little bit better than the Jets, it's very, very funny, right? I was looking at the Chiefs and saying, oh, I'm gonna pick the Jets. I mean, the Chiefs aren't gonna be the second team in the history of the NFL to cover a 21-point spread, and then of course they did, and I looked like a doofus. I'm not betting against the Chiefs. It's 10-point spread. I think they cover this. I think I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. What was the over/under on this one? 51. It's funny. I think the Chiefs are going to score like 35, 40 points themselves. So I wouldn't mind going with the over on this one. But here's the deal, right? You have to really pressure Patrick Mahomes, right? You really have to pressure him, or else you give him enough time back there, he's going to beat you. He's going to pick you apart, right? The Panthers are one of the few teams in the league. A little deep analysis here, right? One of the few teams in the league that haven't had their bye yet. Right, they haven't had a chance to rest up. They haven't had a chance yet to mend those small nagging injuries that NFL teams have, right? And as a result of that, they're kind of running on fumes. So I'm gonna ask you a question, put you on a spot. There's no way you would know this, but I'm gonna have you take a stab in the dark, right? In the last two games, now I remember I said pressure Patrick Mahomes or he's gonna beat you. In the last two games, how many punts have the Panthers forced?
Last two games, how many punts have the Panthers?
In other words, like 3 and out, whatever it may be. How many times have they forced their opponent to punt the ball? So basically getting it back.
I mean, it's NFL. It's got to be at least 6-7 times.
We would think, right? Because 3-4 games. Exactly. In 2 games. In the last 2 games, the Panthers have forced only 1 punt.
How do they get the ball back?
Believe it or not, it's either turnovers. They let the other team score, or they've had a bunch in the last 2 games go for it on 4th down scenarios, and their defense actually came up strong. So it's funny. It's a little bit of a misleading stat because they have had some turnovers on downs, right? They make other teams work for their points, right? But they've also been very good at keeping teams to field goals, you name it, the whole deal. This is a different team that they're playing against, right? They're playing against the Chiefs. They don't have field goals. They don't miss when they go for it on 4th down. They get it. And this is a stretch of opponents over here where Mahomes is going to look to really pad that MVP resume, right? And I've said it, a couple of weeks ago where with the Chiefs, right, where it's not like college football. It's not one where where the old Florida Gator team needed to run the score up to pad their resume because they're going to be multiple undefeated teams. And the team that won more games 72-3 was the team that was going to be voted the national champion. You didn't have this tournament that we have now, right? So teams ran up the score. I'm like, it's not like that in the NFL. Well, I was wrong, right? I mean, I think that they are running the score up a little bit. I think they're letting Mahomes showcase his talent against those lesser teams because I think they do value it, right? I mean, Andy Reid wants to be
talked about as better than the Belichick Brady combo. He wants to be that. That's the deal. And there are people out there who would say he deserves that. I think you're one of them. I think you're in the Andy Reid camp, and it's weeks like this
Love
where
Andy Reid.
Patrick Mahomes can have 5 touchdowns and no interceptions by the end of the third quarter, and then sit down and give an interview while the game's still going on about how just give me the MVP now and I'll see you in Disneyland after I win the Super Bowl, assuming Disneyland is open. So it's gonna be in one of those games where Christian McCaffrey's back for the Panthers, and it's not gonna matter. If I were them, I would have let him get better for another week. I think the Chiefs cover this 10. I think they cover this 10 pretty easily. I also think that that over under 51 is a little light. I think that one's going to come in. I think if you were looking for a point spread to bet on, I think that's one of them. I don't think that I think they're going to go over 51 there. I think the Chiefs might score in the 40s themselves, as I'm saying. So next up, Texans minus.
I think it's a number they're laying there that they want people, I think, to take the Panthers. It's a lot of points, right? But you're right. The Chiefs do run up the score. They run a different offense than most other teams. Do you know how they are on the run? Are they a good run defense?
Who, the Panthers or the Chiefs?
Chiefs.
I don't think teams have had. I think stat-wise, they are good. They're in the top half of the league in run defense, but it's a skewed stat because they've always been so far ahead that teams don't run the ball against them.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, like in yards per game category, a team that's almost undefeated, they're not going to give up a lot of yards rushing because teams are playing the second half from behind. They're throwing the ball to try to get back in the game. So those are sometimes a little misleading. There's only one way to beat these guys. And believe it or not, the Panthers have a little bit of that with their run, ball control, you name it, their Teddy Bridgewater, clock stuff. And, the one chance they have to stay in a game like this is to follow the game plan the Raiders did, where it's just limit the amount of times Mahomes touches the ball. And when you have it, you can't turn the ball over and you have to score. That is a very difficult game plan to execute. I'm a Raider fan. I think that was the best game they played all year. I don't know if they're able to replicate that, and if they played the Chiefs again, I'm sure the Chiefs will have an entirely different game plan against them. But if there is a way to attack the Chiefs, the Panthers are built to do that. They are built to beat ball control. Believe it or not, better, I think, without McCaffrey, because I think the power running back, was actually better suited for that. But hey, we'll see. So we're up to the Texans against the Jaguars, and I'm going to say something here that's going to be probably a little controversial to our audience, right? So if Gardner Minshew was playing this game, I would have picked the Jaguars plus the 6.5 because
did they bench him?
Well, so I think they might have benched him even without the injury, but he has a thumb injury.
Gotcha.
So he's out because of a thumb injury, and who knows when he's going to be back. But there was talk of him potentially being benched even before he got hurt. So I don't know if we'd be in a different spot here with the Jaguars, even if he was healthy. I think they might have benched him this week anyway, which is just, it's wrong. I've watched them play the Texans multiple times, including, I think it was Minshew's, his coming out game last season. And he didn't beat him, but I think he might have been a 2-point conversion away from it. He kept him in the game. He did enough with his legs. He made enough plays where he kept a divisional game like that close. I'm not trusting a rookie quarterback to do that. One who has had, a week of practice with his guys, does not have the timing down with his receivers the way that Minshew did, and doesn't do those little scrappy plays with his legs, scrambles, you name it, that Minshew brought to the team. Now, that being said, if you're Jake Luton, who is, coming in for Gardner Minshew, you can't ask for a better matchup, really. The Texans are the 32nd ranked defense in the league. That's you can't get worse. There aren't 33 teams, right? So that's the fun, right? Luton, he's a rookie QB, And I think this game, believe it or not, is going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Wow. Can I ask you though? I was
please, go ahead.
just gonna ask. To me, the under on this game seems like a gift, and I'll explain why.
Yeah, please.
As much as bad teams shoot out, sometimes they do go over. Where are the weapons? Who is going to be the playmaker on offense to get them these points?
Well, I don't like betting the under when a team is coming off a bye week. That's first. Now, of course, you can counter that off when, they're coming off a bye week and now starting a rookie quarterback, right? But normally teams come off a bye week. They have 2 weeks of being coached, 2 weeks of being healthy, 2 weeks, they come out there and their first 15 plays are scripted, and they have this great offense, and they have these great things that they've exploited, weakness on the other side. I think the Jaguars are going to score here. Who are the playmakers? I mean, Jaguars running back Robinson is fantastic. I think he's great. I think they lean on him, and I don't think the Texans have the real ability to slow him down or stop him. And I think Deshaun Watson has his best game of the season today. I think you could see Watson putting up, one of those 4 or even 5 touchdown games. I see this game. Now, it's funny, right? For me saying, oh, it's an over, I see like a 30-21 Texans win here, which doesn't really put it over by that much, right? Because the over-under is 49. But if it were 55, I might not be so strong about it, but I think the Texans score in the 30s here. Just because they're not as bad as they've looked, right? I mean, Deshaun Watson is a very, very good player. If they're going to win and they're going to have one of those shootout type of games, this is it. And the Jaguars, we talk about the Texans defense, but the Jaguars, I think prior to last week, they had given up 30 points every game. So it really isn't about the weapons. It's about you have a matchup of 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL. A rookie QB, turnovers, they usually, what's difficult about it, Andrew, and my take on it is, I talked about this with turnovers in like the Browns Raiders game. I mean, it really depends on where those turnovers happen. Could I see the Texans having 2 pick sixes here? Sure. I mean, I don't think the Jaguars went into the season expecting Jake Luton to start at quarterback for them. So I would not
pay you the big bucks. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Well, I wouldn't. So here's the thing, right? So it's not one where I'm saying this is a guarantee, right? It's not one where I'd say it's going to go way over, right? If I were picking it, I would go over, as you say, 30-21. I think that goes over. It's not one where I'd say, oh, this is a lock. This game is over. But if I were picking one way or the other, that's the way that I would go. But the better play for me, I think, is the Texans -6.5. And this one, talk about a teaser for me on this one, because 6.5, I know you like to play 6.5 on the teasers, right? Because if I'm saying the Texans win this game, right? But it's a divisional game and anything can happen, and it's close. This is one you could basically tease down to the money line, right?
That's right. And you're teasing across key numbers, right? So a lot of games end in 3, 4, and 7. Those are the key numbers that most games end in. I would say, I don't have the number off the top of my head, 75% of NFL games end in those numbers. It probably has changed a bit since they moved the extra point back, right? Because that does skew things, and you see more 8 and 6. But the point is, if you could tease across those numbers, I mean, you're really helping your chances. If you and on a spread on a board like this week that I'm looking at, there's some really sharp lines. The books, in my opinion, have done a really good job setting these lines. That's a good thing, actually, if you're a fan of teasing, because you could just tease around it.
So what's funny, right, is it's a great lead into the next game on our sheet, because this was one that I looked at and I said, oh man, come on, this is like the perfect line. And the reason why they were able to get a perfect line is because these two teams played like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
it's the Redskins and the Giants, right? Now it's at Washington, and it's always tricky trying to look at a team like this where they literally just played each other, right? And the Giants actually hung tough in their first meeting together. It was a really interesting one. This one was hard for me to pick, because if you told me right now that the Redskins win this game 21-19, the Redskins win this game by 2, or, remember that's what it was. It was, basically a field goal, 1 point, 2 points, 3 points at the end of the game. That I'm going to pick the Skins, But if it comes to Washington 21-19 and I lose this by half point, I'm gonna really throw my computer against the wall, which is something that bettors do. I have to go with the Redskins here, and here's why. Right? They literally just played. They played in week 6, and it's an instructive game to look at because while the Giants hung tight, and they've been hanging tight with teams they play against, if you look back at that game, the Giants really struggled to move the ball against the Redskins defense. And there were 2 Kyle Allen turnovers that set them up for 14 of their points. Now, sure, that could happen again, but relying on 14 points on 2 turnovers to keep the game close is not the way to win bets. If you just look at the 2 teams, what you're looking at here is a big talent disparity. While the Giants are playing hard enough to stay in the games, Washington has way more players on both sides of the ball. McLaurin and Gibson on offense, Young and Sweat on defense. You got an underrated secondary here. They make plays. They're at home. I think this one, well, at first looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, I can see this be a 21-19 game. How can I pick the Redskins? I think, the more that I hashed out the stats here and how the Giants were able to keep it close, the easier this one was for me to pick the Redskins.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Cade.
Yeah,
in
please.
The last 4 weeks, the last 4 opponents, the last 4 games that the Giants played, they've lost 3 of them, won 1. Do you know the difference in the totals of the games? Do you know how much they lost against the Cowboys by 3? They beat the Redskins by 1. They lost to the Eagles by 1, and they lost to the Bucs by 2.
Yeah,
those are some tough games.
Well, that's the thing. The Giants they're playing teams close. They really are, and they've done just enough. But you know what happens eventually when you're doing that? Eventually, what happens is the clock strikes 12, and you turn into the pumpkin that you are, right?
I agree.
When you're playing these games just close enough, right? And it's funny. Another great lead-in. That's exactly what happened to Herbert and the Chargers last week. They looked like they were playing good, and then the fourth quarter clock struck, and all of a sudden he was a pumpkin again. There's a stat called variance in the NFL, right? And what that means is it's consistency from week to week, and the Chargers have the highest variance in football. They're the most erratic team, is what that means. And what's funny about it is that stat measures week to week consistency. But I think if there was a in-game variance stat, they would probably lead the NFL in that too, with in-game erraticness. Because is there another team in there that looks like they could beat anyone in football for the first half or even 3 quarters, and then they just turn into a mess, right? And it's funny because, I'm a Raider fan, and you're not supposed to, bet with your heart or say these great things, right? As much as I have an irrational hatred of some of these other teams, the Raiders are boring. They're boring, but they're steady. It literally is an odd couple game here. It's Felix Unger against Oscar Madison in this divisional matchup. The Raiders have long, sustained drives and then settle for field goals a lot, which is a shame. But it's what allowed them to beat a team like the Chiefs. And basically, if they play their game, their style, with Derek Carr not making mistakes behind a huge offensive line, it's one of those things where the Raiders could potentially beat anyone, and I don't think the Chargers yet are good enough to beat them. This is going to be a good game, right?
This is my favorite play of the week, by the way.
Carr's not as flashy, right? Carr's not as flashy as Herbert is. He's the young rookie, tall. He's got the stature. He's got all the makings of a future NFL great quarterback. And the Chargers have the weapons. Keenan Allen is just a prototypical go up and get the ball, go across the middle. He's going to make Herbert look great. But this is one of those games where I think the Raiders take it. I think you don't bet against the Chargers until they show you that they can play a fourth quarter. I think the Raiders might be ahead in the fourth quarter, and the Chargers are not going to be able to come back. I think if the Raiders aren't ahead, they will get ahead in the fourth quarter.
And this is the one where, I got the Raiders -1, right? I want to make sure I get the Raiders -1, and we're going to go with the Raiders today. This is one also where, even though it's 52.5, I like the over. I really do. I like the over. The game's in Inglewood. It's not in Vegas. I get it. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring on this one. And, I think that 52.5 on this one is easily attainable. I think we might see, both teams get into the 30s. So over 52.5 on that one. What do you think?
I love it. I really like the Raiders. I like them a lot when they were +1 to move the line to +7.5. I was talking to Cards to the Max about it yesterday. That was my favorite play of the day. To use that as the other side of your teasers. Yeah, Raiders are good, man. And I mean, I think Anthony Lynn is top 5 worst coaches in the league. I just don't think. I think that team is actually really talented on defense. I just think they're poorly coached. They run dumb plays. You can tell, Anthony Lynn didn't even want to play Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert's a monster. But still, he makes a lot of dumb mistakes that cost the game, and I just think the Raiders are in a way better spot to win this game.
Yep. Well, so here is it's funny, right? Because it's 14.5, and you never want to make 14.5 one of your stone cold locks. But the Steelers covering this 14.5 today is going to happen. This might be a 31-10 or a 28-7 type of game here. I don't care who's starting quarterback for the Cowboys. Dallas was the worst team in the league when they had Andy Dalton at quarterback. And they weren't so great even when Dak Prescott was their quarterback. And the big surprise for the Cowboys this year is just how bad their offensive line has been. They can't protect anyone against a 4-man rush, and they're even worse against the blitz. And when you face the Steelers defense, I think I might want to face Mike Tyson in his prime rather than stand back at quarterback against the Steelers defense with that Dallas Cowboys offensive line protecting me. Isn't that sad? The Steelers are just going to tee off against them today. Now, Dallas' defense, believe it or not, last week actually showed some signs of life, but that was in a game where they could have won, right? They were up at halftime. They were keeping the game close. That is not going to be the case today. The Steelers are going to run the ball. The Steelers are going to just continue to pound them. I think the Steelers defense is going to have a couple of takeaways. I think Dallas defense is going to be on roller skates. They're going to be on the field, constantly. Their own offense is going to potentially be their worst enemy. I think the Steelers scoring points. I don't know if you can find a line on, defensive touchdown, but I think the Steelers defense scores a touchdown, maybe 2 today. And this is just one of those games where I think the Steelers just run away with this one. It's going to be, one of those ugly scores. So Steelers -14.5. Book it.
Oh, this is dangerous though, Cage. Remember the week where I said, I love your plays and I want to tail?
Yep.
But the last 2 plays were my 2 favorite plays because, the more you do this, the more you realize when you need to take a shot in the dark and when you need to just ride a trend, right? There's nothing creative about taking the Steelers, right? It looks very square, as they say.
Yep.
But sometimes you have to get out of your own way and just lay the money, lay the points on a team that's just infinitely better than the other team and teams that are also going in the wrong direction. What's going to get Dallas up for this game? Where are they going to rally around? They have nothing positive coming out of that locker room. The Steelers have everything positive, and I just think it's a really simple play. It's my favorite play of the week, even though it's probably the most square play of the week.
Yeah, well, listen, 14.5 is just it's begging for, as you like to talk about, those backdoor covers, right? The Steelers could be winning this game by 3 touchdowns, and bench everybody, and you could fall victim to a just a last minute garbage touchdown by Pollard or whatever it may be. The Steelers dominate on all facets of the of the ball, and becomes a 14-point game at the end.
But you know what I like about that?
Go ahead.
There's some teams, you're absolutely right. For some reason, the Steelers culture, I feel like they have something to prove this year. I would say their second string guys would beat the Dallas Cowboys.
I think that third string guys would beat the Cowboys.
Exactly. So if they put them in, I actually see the score getting wider, not less. They still have to play, right? So I see this as like a 42-3 game.
Yeah. Well, listen, a garbage touchdown. I think you're right. I think a garbage touchdown is what makes this a 4-score game. I'm with you, and that's why this was an easy one for me. But yeah, I mean, 14.5. That's just one of those spreads that kind of screams for money to come in on the underdog, and I think that's what Vegas is hoping for.
Do you
But
think the Cowboys right now are worse than the Jets?
it would be a great game. I think it's something to think about. The NFL should be able to do that, right? The NFL should be able to flex that, right? Like we should be able to let the Saints and the Bucks play every week and let the Cowboys and the Jets play every week. They should be able to do that. Like, we should be able to pick who the matchups we want to see. I would actually like to see that game. Could the Cowboys beat
How
the
would you
Jets
do
now?
it? Would you do the loser gets the number one pick or the winner gets the number one pick?
Oh, wow. I think if we could do that at the end of the year, if there are teams that are tanking for the worst pick,
right?
I think I would love it if they had 2 0-16 teams and the NFL had the ability to say, okay, now you guys have to play each other, and the winner,
a playoff, like a college football playoff, right?
The winner gets the pick.
Oh, I like that. So you got the Giants, you got the Jets, you got the Cowboys. Who would be the fourth team? Or would you just have one game?
No, I would. Well, listen, I'm just assuming there's 2 0-16 teams with the worst team. But look, if you want to, the Cowboys, they who else? Maybe the Jaguars would probably be in there, right? Jets, Jaguars, Cowboys, Giants.
Yeah, a little college football playoff.
Now, would it be more fun?
Would it be fun, right?
Would it be more fun if it was the loser? Because you got these guys going out there, fumbling the. I mean, like no one would even be playing. That's why you got to make it the winner. The winner gets it. And, you have these horrible teams playing against each other, actually trying. So here, the next game here, which is I think the end of our 4:00 games, the end of our Sunday, before we get to the night game. Here's one of the tougher games for me. Cardinals Dolphins. And I was expecting it to be a 3-point spread. I was expecting this to be a 3-point spread. And you've seen so far with what I've done here, I thought the Lions are going to be a 3-point spread, so I went with the Lions plus 3.5 because if I think it's a 3-point game and a team's getting more than 3, that was the way to go. The Skins, I think, it's a 3-point game. The Skins minus 2.5. This one was a tough one for me, right? Because it's an interesting matchup, right? Both teams are good, right? Two teams, both improved from 19. And the Dolphins are really well coached, right? And you saw them against the Rams last week. They blitzed Goff, right? And Goff could not deal with it, right? The way to beat this Dolphins is to run against them. And this is not a team that has a huge running offense, right? It's been Kyler Murray, throw it to Hopkins, Kyler Murray, do your stuff, right? But blitzing Kyler Murray is different than blitzing Jared Goff, right? I mean, he is as elusive as it gets, right? And you almost kind of dare the Dolphins to be who they are, right? Go ahead and go right ahead and blitz our guy, because once he gets past your blitz, he's in the open field and done. It's just really an interesting thing, and I think my pick comes down to this, right? It's a show me league, you like to say, right? You got to prove it. I'm not gonna ride with you until you prove it. And while Captain Tua got a win last week, it really wasn't because of anything he did. His stats were not so spectacular. And, you can say that he didn't have to be spectacular. When you win, you don't have to have those spectacular stats. And Kyler Murray has had games like that himself too, where his team has won and he's gone 9 for 20 or something like that, So I can't really fault him, but I can't wrap my head around riding with Tua until he proves that he's able to move the offense in a game like this, where he's going to have to score points. They're going to have to rely on his arm to carry them. And this one here, I'm going to go against my betting strategy the entire time. And even though I think this is a field goal game, I'm going to go with the Cardinals. And what was it, 5.5 points? I think my pick on this one is the Cardinals minus 5.5. And I like the over. The over is 49.5. I like the over. I like over 49.5 points. I think both of these teams are going to be able to score points. I would love this more if the Cardinals were -2.5. So talk to me. If this was a tease game,
I'm on the other side, and I'm just the Tua believer. To me, Kyler is actually the one that needs to prove it, because Tua's been a winner through and through. But I do agree with your analysis. Other than that, like I think it's an interesting game. I've been on the Dolphins all week. I've wanted to ride Tua till the wheels fall off. That was kind of my strategy when they were putting him in. I rode him last week, so I can't not ride him again. I know how that sounds now, but I love the Dolphins here. I love teasing them up to 11, but I have a bit of hesitation after hearing your analysis. I'll be honest.
come on, listen. Here's my only thought process on this. Right, when you looked at the Dolphins Rams last week and you saw that the game was 28-17, were you a little surprised?
No, because I no, I played
28-17. I know you played them, but you played them because they were +3.5 points. You played them because even if the Rams won, the Rams could win by a field goal. You would talk about potential money line, but nobody had Miami winning the convincing way that they did. And my thought on this is those are the kind of games I like to bet against the team the week after. Kind of like the Packers, right? I mean, when a team, I think, overperforms, and they did, they overperformed, and we did not get a real look at an NFL Tua. We didn't get a real look at somebody who had to scramble, who had to throw and had to make plays yet. And yes, he's done it before he was significantly injured in college when he had the best team in the league. I just can't put my money on Tua yet. Now, I could be wrong. And next week, I could be singing Tua's praises and saying, all right, he burned me. He was able to go into Arizona where the Cardinals play very different. Yeah. He was able to go into Arizona and keep that game close or beat them. This, like I said, going into this was a tougher one, right? Because I watched the Miami game last week and I was shocked. I mean, that Miami team, they looked good. They really did. They looked good as a team. But I just think this is one where the one thing you said that I do agree with, it is time for Kyler to prove something. And I think he does it today. I think that, that the Cardinals are one of the better teams in that conference.
This is an interesting game because there's a lot of conflicting information. So let me throw a few things your way.
Go ahead.
One, most of the money is on the Dolphins. Okay, 70%, 75%, and this line did hit that 3.5 mark, even 3 at FanDuel, and then it shot back up to 5.5. So that's always interesting when a lot of money's coming in on one team, and it's reverse line movement. Let me read you who the Cardinals have played. This is what they played: the 49ers, Washington, the Lions, the Panthers, the Jets, the Cowboys, the Seahawks. They're 5-2. But we talk about the Bears being 5-3. Not a very inspiring schedule, is it?
No, not at all.
This is interesting. I mean,
no, and they haven't really played what you would call inspired football, right? They haven't.
They could come out of their bye. Kyler and DeAndre could be in sync, and they could put up 35. And the Dolphins could have a great game. They could put up 24, but that's still an easy cover.
Yep. And I mean, listen, there's something to be said about momentum, right? I mean, going into their bye, do you remember who they beat the week before their bye?
Seahawks.
Yep. So I mean, that's a pretty big win to go into your bye, get healthy with some momentum, and really come out thinking like you're world beaters. I don't see them losing to the Dolphins. I mean, I think they are the better team than the Dolphins, and I have a difficult time, riding with the Dolphins. We've hashed it out. So, Bucks -4 might be one of the most annoying spreads. It's minus. Right now, your thing is Bucks -3.5. If you check your scores and odds app, right? So Bucks -3.5.
Pretty nice app, isn't it, Cage?
Well, I know that you and I are not going to be arguing over what the spread is because we're looking at the same lines. So that's okay, right?
We don't argue. We have respectful disagreements, and let that be an example for people how to do it.
Well, listen, you can say that. I say I want to jump through the screen and strangle you. But hey, let that be an example.
So, I don't want you to hurt your other hip and have 6 pins.
Dude, I'm an old man. Hey, old man River, shut up or I'll break your hip. You tell me what movie that's from. I will be very impressed. Anybody listening to this, tell me that. Hey, old man River, zip it or I'll break your hip. You tell me what movie that's from in the comments, and you get some respect from Cage.
That's huge.
Let's see. So the 8 o'clock game, right? I don't know whether you see the trend here in the scores that we've picked. There are a lot of close games. I have a lot of, games staying close, teams staying close, underdogs. But here, I mean, these guys played the game already, right? And I think this is the week where the Bucks get their revenge, right? The analytics on this one loves the Bucks. I like the Bucks. We haven't seen any obvious weakness for Tampa Bay yet. Their pass rush, not exactly the strongest. And the Saints have a very good offensive line. They pass protect for Drew Brees. They run block great for Alvin Kamara. You don't really have to talk too much about the Saints and who they are. They're obviously very, very good. Believe it or not, my second stone cold lock of the week here is over 50.5 for this game.
I like it.
I like it. I like over 50.5 because look, you know what you have going on a little behind the scenes, blah, blah, blah here. You have, I think, Brady with a 1 touchdown lead now for career touchdowns over Drew Brees. There was a game within the game here. And it's going to be annoying if you watch this game tonight at 8 o'clock, because if it comes out and Brees throws a touchdown, you're going to have, and Brees has now tied the all-time record for touchdowns passed. And then Brady gets the ball. And it's, oh, wow, Tom Brady has now set the record.
100%.
They really are. And it's going to be like that for as long as these two guys play the game.
Well, this is also the second time that they're meeting for the season, and the last time until the playoffs. And that's a big, check me out before we meet again type of vibe, right? They're not going to meet again. And you're absolutely right. The head-to-head duel between Brady, Brees, Antonio Brown is in for the Bucks. Michael Thomas, I apologize, is back for the
Saints.
Back.
Back.
I mean, everything is shaping up for it to be just an awesome Sunday night football game. I love the over on this.
But here's the fun, right? Not only is it the biggest game of week 9, but it's one of the biggest games in the NFC all season. And it is a huge game for both teams because both of them are legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And the winner of this game has a significant edge in the battle for the NFC South. So the team that comes out of this game basically controls their own destiny for the division, for home field advantage during the playoffs, for a home potential bye, a home field game. The importance of the game can't be overstated. I think that the best way to beat Tampa Bay's defense is over the top. That does not favor Brees. Brees is not somebody who's taking the top off the defense. You know what his bread and butter is. It's screens to Kamara. It's over the middle to Michael Thomas. It is not the deep ball, which is the only place I've seen Tampa have any real vulnerability. That Bucs defense is good. And believe it or not, that Bucs offensive line is one of the best in the league as well. I put it right up there with the Raiders. Tom Brady's jersey has not been dirty basically all year. So you're going to let both of these teams score. I think the over 50.5 comes in. I think that's one of my stone cold locks of the day, and I think the Bucs carry that 3.5. And we have our Sunday slate for you, so I can read them again. I'll read them again for you if you like. We have the
let's cut it here, and then you're gonna do a little preview, and we're gonna put it in the beginning, right, so people get a chance to listen.
Sure.
Real quick, someone came in with a question while we were doing this. Cards to the Max wanted to talk about the line movement. So the line movement in the Colts-Ravens game, okay? So real quick, let me pull it up. I believe it opened at -1.5. Yep. So it opened at -4 to the Ravens. Then it moved to the Colts -1.5.
And now it's Colts -1.
And now it's back to the Ravens -1.5.
No, look at yours. Look right now on your app. I mean, thanks, Card Cinematic.
Colts are now -1.
It's Colts -1. See, I'm correcting you.
This
Colts
line is
-1.
all over. I
Listen,
always get nervous when I see stuff like that, but I mean,
me too.
Ravens,
Because
we talked about a lot of injuries, right?
You never know what's happening on that one. So I mean, what line are we using on this one? It's now Colts -1. I mean, it's basically, no matter how you do this one, it's a money line game, right? So I'm not gonna change it now and say I'm getting points with the Ravens. We had it Ravens -1. Now it's Colts -1. Basically, what we're doing here is we're picking who's winning this game. And I'm sticking with the Ravens. I think the fact that it's now Colts -1 doesn't make a difference to me. I think that this is the Ravens game to win, and I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's interesting, man. I mean, what does that tell you? You're John Abraham, the $1 million man with the $1 billion plan. Tell me, what does that mean? Does that mean somebody came in with a lot of cash and betted on the Colts this morning?
No, it actually means that the sports books are doubling down, in my opinion, on the line that they believe in. So even though most of the money is going one way, the books are saying we think our line is strong, and we're going to keep it there, basically.
But it just moved. When we started this, it was Ravens -1.5, and now it's Colts +1. I mean,
for me as a
-1.
bettor, so
Yep.
that's what it tells me. But for me as a bettor, it makes things really difficult. So maybe they were seeing, I don't know, I'm just speculating. Like, for example, you can't tease that line anymore towards the Colts, right? If you got that line early on, you could have teased it over 7. And you know how much I love teasing over a touchdown, right?
Yep.
Now you tease that Colts line, you get it to -5.5. I don't know. I don't know what it tells me. It's conflicting information.
I mean, it's possible, right? Because look, I always look at it just as the line, right? But you're right. I mean, this is one of those games I think a lot of people probably did tease towards the Colts. And at +1.5, as we had it this morning, if you wanted to, you could bet the Colts getting 7.5, which puts them over that touchdown number. And maybe what they were seeing were a lot of those. And maybe they moved the line because of that. Yeah.
Yep, and they're vulnerable.
Makes sense. And I think that answers Card to the Max question. All right, folks. Well, listen, we got a hell of a Sunday ahead of us here. We're gonna end this now so we can get this out for you with a couple hours for you to actually make your plays on this. I am going to I'm gonna do a quick read back now on these picks, and make sure we put a little preview in the beginning of it for you. Comment on this, and who's got? There's like I think I put 3 or 4 movies into this here today. So tell me about Old Man River breaking your hip. That would be hilarious. I got a little John Anthony in there too. I can't believe we haven't really mentioned him yet during our Sunday plays. Andrew, any last minute stuff for the guys? You got any, like, looking at these spreads? You got any cool, like, 2-team, 3-team teaser or anything like that for folks to capitalize on?
Let me pull up my notes.
Sure, take your time.
I love the Raiders +7.5 on a teaser. It's going to be hard to get that line now because the Raiders are -1. I love the Dolphins on a +12 on a teaser. I love the Titans pick on a teaser. I love the Steelers -14.5 straight up.
Yep.
I think the Broncos are an interesting play, but just for a really tiny amount, just to have some stake in the game. And that's really it. I will say it's a little scary, but the Ravens +7.5 or 8.5, whatever you could get it now on a teaser is interesting.
Yep.
And last thing is the Texans -1 on a teaser is really worth it as well.
Yeah, well, now it's Texas -6.5. You tease that down, right? You can actually go across the money line. Basically, the Texans money line, which is, I think the Texans are definitely that's a great one. I put that Texans in a teaser, Texas money line. Basically, come on, I think I took a free money there against the rookie quarterback.
Chiefs might be worth teasing as well too.
Yep.
If that's your thing.
Yep, down to a field goal, basically. All right, well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll hope to catch up with you again in the Sunday night recap, or maybe tomorrow. We'll see how we feel after these games.
Yes, sir.
Okay, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and subscribe, Now, you know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.